The storm had teeth that night. Midnight pressed heavy against the earth, and the rain came down like shards of glass, slashing at broken windows, hissing through the trees, hammering the cracked pavement of an empty road that twisted deeper into the woods. The wind howled like a creature that had lost its way, a low mournful sound that wrapped itself around the body of a girl who had already lost too much. Alara stumbled barefoot down that road, mud clinging to her skin, blood painting a trail behind her. Every step felt like fire cutting into her flesh, every breath scraped raw through her lungs. Her arms shook as she tried to steady herself against the skeletal trunks of pines that leaned over the road like silent witnesses, their branches dripping with stormwater. The night should have swallowed her whole, but the truth was, she didn't need the dark to feel invisible, her own pack had done that long ago. She pressed a trembling hand to her side, felt the sticky warmth of her own blood seeping through her fingers. The wound burned as if it wanted to remind her that she was still alive. But in her heart, she wasn't sure she wanted to be. She was running, not just from the night, not just from the men who had tried to break her, but from the echo of voices that had told her over and over, "You're cursed, you're dangerous, you don't belong here." Lightning split the sky, and for a moment, the world flashed white. Her face, gaunt, pale, streaked with dirt and rain, reflected in the shattered glass of a roadside sign. She looked like someone else. Someone feral. Someone abandoned. And maybe that was all she would ever be. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. That sound, small, simple, felt louder than the storm. She fumbled for it, her hands slippery, shaking. The glow of the screen burned into her eyes as she typed the only words her mind could form through the haze of panic and pain. She thought of him, her ex, the one who had left her to drown but still clung to her thoughts in moments of desperation. Maybe he would pick up this time. Maybe he'd care just enough to save her from collapsing into the mud and disappearing like nothing. Her thumbs moved fast, reckless. "Please. I need you. I'm bleeding. They're coming. Don't leave me this time." She hit send. The little arrow flew, and with it, every ounce of dignity she had left. She hated herself for it, for reaching out to the very man who had let her shatter. But when you're drowning, you grab for anything, no matter how jagged the rope might be. The screen dimmed. The rain poured harder. For a moment, silence. Then, her phone buzzed again. Relief crashed into her chest so hard it almost knocked her breath away. But when her eyes caught the words, that fragile hope curdled into dread. Who is this? Not his number. Not his voice. She froze, her pulse beating like war drums in her ears. She had sent it to the wrong person. The wrong number. She typed fast, desperate to undo the mistake. "Sorry. Wrong text. Please ignore." But the response came almost instantly, like whoever was on the other side had been waiting. "Where are you?" Her throat went dry. The storm howled louder. She told herself not to answer, to shut it off, to keep moving. But her fingers hovered over the screen, trembling, betraying her fear. Before she could decide, another message appeared. "I already know who you are, Alara." Her breath caught. Her chest tightened so hard it hurt. The letters of her name glared up at her, bright against the black screen. She hadn't given it. She hadn't told a soul. Yet here it was. The night grew colder. Headlights cut through the fog ahead, one beam, then two, then more. Engines rumbled low and steady, drowning out even the storm. The ground shook beneath her bare feet as black SUVs rolled in from every direction, their glossy bodies gleaming wet under the rain. One stopped in front of her, another behind. Then another pulled up at her side. In less than a minute, 7 massive vehicles had surrounded her, closing in like predators circling their prey. Her phone buzzed one last time, the words crawling across the screen as if written in her own blood. "You shouldn't have texted me. But now that you have. I'm here." Alara's body trembled, not from the cold but from the knowledge that whatever she had stumbled into was bigger, darker, more dangerous than anything she had ever known. She thought she had been running from her past, from rejection, from the shame that had followed her since exile. But the truth settled heavy in her chest. Her mistakes had found her, and they had come in the form of 7 black SUVs, engines growling like beasts in the storm. And deep inside, where her wolf slept uneasily, something stirred. It wasn't just fear. It wasn't just dread. It was fire, restless and silver, begging to be set free. The night had shifted. And Alara's life would never be the same. If you feel your heart pounding right now, if you felt her fear like it was your own, don't stop here. Subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, because this is just the beginning. And the deeper you go, the more you'll realize, some stories don't just live on the screen. They burn inside you. The rain softened for only a breath, as though the storm itself leaned in to listen. The 7 black SUVs idled in a perfect ring around her, engines low and steady like beasts waiting for a command. Their headlights threw long, harsh beams across the road, painting Alara in a cold, merciless glow. Mud clung to her legs, blood dripped from her wound, and her wolf inside twisted restlessly, sensing what she could not yet see. The driver's door of the front SUV opened. Slow. Controlled. Deliberate. A figure stepped out, tall, shoulders cutting sharp lines against the blur of rain. He moved like he had all the time in the world, like the chaos of the storm bent itself around him instead of daring to touch him. His coat was black, sleek, and it clung to him as if the rain belonged there, sliding off in dark rivulets. When the lightning cracked above, it revealed his face, sculpted features, a strong jaw shadowed in stubble, and eyes so piercing they seemed to slice straight through her chest. Cale. The name rose in her throat before he spoke it. She had never met him, but stories had whispered his name long before this night. Mafia boss. Wolf Alpha. The kind of man people feared in silence, because even to say his name aloud might summon him. Alara, he said. Not a question. A statement. His voice was low, almost gentle, but it struck her harder than the storm. Her knees weakened, not from her wound but from the way he carried her name on his tongue like he had been holding it for years. Her breath came sharp, shallow. How do you know me? The words barely left her lips. Cale stepped closer, boots steady against the mud. His presence filled the night, so heavy, so commanding, that even the men who emerged from the other SUVs kept a careful distance. They were armed, shadows with guns and cold eyes, but none of them moved until he did. I've been watching you, he said, his gaze never leaving hers. Your exile. You're wandering. The way you run, but never far enough. She staggered back, clutching her side. Why? The word broke, trembling, desperate. He stopped only a few feet away, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off his body even through the cold rain. His eyes locked on hers, and she swore the storm stilled between heartbeats. Because you texted me tonight, he murmured. Because the man you thought would save you is the same man I've been hunting. And now, his lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. Now, you're mine. Alara's chest clenched. Her wolf inside growled, torn between fear and a strange pull that drew her toward him like gravity. I don't even know you. You don't have to, Cale replied, his voice quiet but sharp as a blade. I know you. I know what you are. I know what you've been hiding. And I know what he tilted his chin slightly, rain dripping from his jaw, took from me. Her ex. The one she had texted. The one who had abandoned her. Cale wasn't here for her. He was here for him. Yet his eyes, those icy, unrelenting eyes, held her as though she were the center of all his focus. Behind him, one of his men moved forward, hand on his weapon. Boss, let's take her. Alara's breath hitched. She tried to step back again, but Cale lifted one hand, casual, effortless. The man froze in place. No word, no shout, just the weight of Cale's command pressing down like a wall. No one touches her, Cale said, still looking only at Alara. She walks with me. Or she doesn't walk at all. The storm roared again, lightning spilling across the sky, and in that flash she saw what the others must have seen too. He wasn't just a man. He wasn't just Alpha. He was something more, something darker, something forged from fire and shadow. A hybrid of two worlds, the ruthless Mafia king and the wolf leader who bent packs to his will. Alara's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to tell him she didn't belong here, that she was nothing but a mistake, a girl cursed with a power she couldn't control. But her voice wouldn't rise. Her body wouldn't move. Cale stepped closer, close enough now that the rain on his skin flicked against hers, close enough that she could smell him, cedar, smoke, and something metallic, like danger woven into his very blood. His eyes softened, just barely, enough to make her knees tremble. "You sent the wrong text," he said, almost like a whisper meant only for her. "But there are no mistakes, Alara. Not tonight. You called for help, and I came." Her heart twisted painfully. Was this rescue? Or capture? Her wolf snarled in confusion, torn between the instinct to flee and the desperate ache to lean closer, to trust the pull that tethered her to him in ways she didn't understand. Cale studied her face like he could read every thought she didn't dare speak. His gaze dropped to her bleeding side, lingered on the trembling of her hands, then rose back to her eyes. "You can fight me," he said, calm, steady, "but you won't win. You can run, but you'll never get far enough. Or," his voice lowered, dark velvet against the storm, "you can come with me. And live." The word struck deeper than any threat could. She swallowed hard, fighting back tears she refused to let him see. "And if I say no?" Cale's jaw tightened. He leaned in, just enough that she felt his breath against her ear. "Then you'll wish the storm had swallowed you before I did." She flinched, but in his eyes there was no cruelty. Only truth. Only power. And beneath that, something even more dangerous, a flicker of recognition, of connection, that scared her more than his men or their guns or the black SUVs that still growled around her. Cale straightened, his hand hovering near her arm but not touching. "Choose, Alara. But understand this, tonight, you're not walking away from me." The storm screamed above, the forest shuddered, and her wolf pressed against her chest, restless, whispering something she wasn't ready to hear, that fate had answered her wrong text, and it had sent her the one man who could either destroy her, or set her free. The storm had not ended when Cale spoke those words, but to Alara it felt as though the night itself held its breath. His presence was so consuming that even the rain seemed quieter when he looked at her. And yet, behind that steady gaze, behind the strange tether that pulled her toward him, the echoes of her past pressed in like a tide she could no longer hold back. Her wolf stirred uneasily, clawing at her ribs, urging her to remember where she had come from, urging her not to forget the scars that made her. Alara's breath shook as the images rose in her mind. The night of her exile. The night her pack had dragged her into the center of the clearing under a swollen red moon. She had been trembling, younger, raw with hope that maybe, just maybe, she would finally prove herself. That night had been her trial, her chance to shift fully for the first time. Every wolf had been there, their eyes bright with anticipation, waiting for her to shed the skin of a girl and take her rightful place among them. But when she tried, when she called on the fire in her blood, something had gone wrong. She remembered the searing pain, the way her body bent and broke and then, exploded. Not into the sleek silver form she had dreamed of, but into something half-born, half-burning. Silver flames erupted from her skin, licking at the ground, scorching the very earth beneath her feet. Wolves screamed. Elders shouted. The air was thick with smoke and panic. And she had fallen to her knees, her body split between human and wolf, sobbing, begging the fire to stop. It hadn't. By dawn, the decision was made. She wasn't a wolf. She wasn't human. She was a danger. They bound her hands, their claws leaving thin cuts across her arms as they dragged her to the border. Words still carved themselves into her memory like brands. Monster. Cursed. Not one of us. And then the Alpha, her own uncle, had looked down at her with a gaze that was colder than Kale's would ever be. He didn't even raise his voice when he gave the command. She leaves tonight. And if she ever returns, she dies. Alara blinked hard against the rain in the present, trying to silence the memory, but the sting of that night was a wound that never healed. Even now, standing before Kale, with his men surrounding her like predators in the dark, it was not fear of him that gutted her most. It was the echo of that rejection, the endless question gnawing at her, what if they were right? Her chest tightened. Her wound throbbed. She wrapped her arms around herself as if she could hold her body together. "You don't know me," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "You don't know what I am." Kale's eyes sharpened, as though he had heard her thought as clearly as her words. He stepped closer, his presence pressing into her space until the rest of the world blurred. Rain dripped from his lashes, but his gaze was steady, unrelenting. "I know enough," he said. She shook her head, choking on the memory. "No. You don't. My pack cast me out. They said I was cursed. They said if I ever returned, they'd kill me." Her voice cracked, brittle as glass. "And they were right too." The words left her raw, stripped open. Kale tilted his head slightly, studying her, but there was no mockery in his face. Only a strange, measured silence, like he was piecing together a puzzle he had been waiting to solve. "Cursed," he repeated softly, tasting the word. His jaw tightened. "That's what cowards say when they don't understand power." Alara's throat closed. It wasn't power. It was fire. It burned them. I couldn't control it. Her nails dug into her palms until they broke skin. I couldn't control myself. Something flickered in Kale's eyes then, a flash of recognition, of memory. His voice dropped, heavy as stone. "Do you think you're the only one who's lost control? Do you think you're the only one who's been betrayed by your own blood?" He stepped even closer until their breaths mingled in the cold air. "You think exile hurts? Try burying a mate who swore she'd stand by you. Try carrying her scent to the grave, only to find she gave it to your enemy first." Alara's lips parted. She hadn't expected that. Not from him. Kale's voice was quiet but sharp, like glass cutting through flesh. "She was mine. She carried my mark. And one night, when I thought she was safe in my bed, she sold my secrets to the men who tried to put a bullet in my heart. I bled for her betrayal. I buried her with my own hands." He paused, his gaze locked on hers. "And then I buried the part of me that cared." The storm seemed to hush again, leaving only the sound of her shallow breaths, his steady ones. Alara felt the weight of his words sink into her bones. He had lost more than she had ever known. But beneath his iron voice, beneath the steel in his eyes, there was something else, something she hadn't expected to find. A fracture. A scar that matched her own. Her wolf stirred again, not restless this time, but curious. She looked away, swallowing the lump in her throat. "So what, you've decided to collect the broken? Is that what this is? You see someone cast out, and you think we'll follow you because we have nowhere else to go?" Kale's silence stretched long enough that she dared to glance back. His face was unreadable, carved from stone. But when he spoke, his words cut through her armor. "No," he said simply. "I don't collect the broken. I recognize the dangerous." His gaze sharpened, pinning her in place. "And I don't waste danger when I find it." Alara's heart twisted. She wanted to recoil. She wanted to run. But her body refused to move. Because buried deep inside, beneath the fear and the shame, beneath the memory of exile and fire, something in her wanted, needed, to believe him. Her lips trembled, but the words slipped out before she could stop them. "And if I burn you too?" Kale's jaw flexed. His voice dropped, steady as a vow. "Then I'll burn with you." The rain poured harder, thunder rolled, and for the first time since her exile, Alara's chest loosened. Not with safety, not with trust, but with the fragile, dangerous spark of something she thought had died in her long ago. Hope. The forest stretched ahead, vast and endless, its trees bending under the weight of the storm. Yet somehow, when Cale told his men to fall back and keep their distance, they obeyed without question. Engines dimmed, headlights faded one by one, until only one vehicle rumbled behind them like a shadow that refused to leave. Cale moved forward with the certainty of a man who never asked if he was being followed. He knew he always was. Alara's body resisted every step, her wound screaming, her wolf pacing anxiously, but something about his presence kept her legs from collapsing beneath her. They left the road behind, climbing deeper into the forest. Branches clawed at her arms, wet earth sucked at her feet, and still Cale walked as if he belonged to this wild, storm-lashed world. She hated that she couldn't take her eyes off him. His coat, soaked through, clung to the line of his shoulders. Every movement radiated command. He did not glance back to see if she could keep up, he already knew she would. When they reached the ridge, the storm broke open wider. Lightning spilled across the sky, and for a moment, Alara thought she saw shapes moving within it, wolves made of fire, jaws of light tearing open the night. She blinked, and the vision dissolved, leaving only thunder rumbling through her bones. Then the shrine appeared. It was older than the forest itself, hidden beneath layers of ivy and stone, its pillars broken, its altar cracked. Time had carved its mark into the ruins, but something about it felt untouched, as though the earth had chosen to preserve it. Strange markings curved along the stones, faint beneath moss and shadow, unreadable until the lightning revealed them for a blink. Alara froze. Her wolf inside stilled completely. Cale stopped at the foot of the altar, rain streaming down his face, his gaze locked on her. "Touch it," he said simply. Her throat tightened. "Why?" "Because it's waiting for you." Her chest burned with panic. She shook her head, backing away. "No. You don't understand. I'm not. I don't want this." Cale's jaw flexed, but his voice remained low, unyielding. "You think I dragged you through this storm for choice? You think I've spent years chasing shadows just to watch you walk away?" His eyes darkened, piercing her where she stood. "Touch it." Alara's pulse raced, every nerve screaming at her to flee. But her feet carried her forward anyway. Each step closer to the altar tightened the knot in her chest, the weight of memory pressing hard. The night of her exile. The fire she couldn't control. The look in her mother's eyes. Cursed. Dangerous. Wrong. Her hand trembled as she reached for the cracked stone. The moment her skin met it, the world shifted. Symbols erupted with light, silver fire running through ancient carvings like veins waking from centuries of sleep. The glow spread across the altar, raced up the broken pillars, climbed into the very air around them. Thunder roared louder, not as storm but as something deeper, older, a voice that belonged to no single world. Alara gasped, staggering back, but the light clung to her hand. It spread across her skin, painting her veins in burning silver. Her wolf surged, pressing hard against her chest, snarling and whimpering at once. She dropped to her knees, clutching her arm, shaking as if her body might split open. The voice rose, not in her ears, but inside her mind. Words she didn't know she knew, words older than her bloodline itself. The marked one carries the silver flame. Born of exile. Forged in fire. She will save the two worlds, or end them both. Alara's breath caught in her throat. The words branded themselves into her bones. She wanted to scream, to beg the light to stop, to tell whatever ancient power this was that it had chosen wrong. She wasn't a savior. She wasn't anything. Her vision blurred, but through it, Cale's face came into focus. He hadn't moved. He hadn't flinched at the eruption of light. He stood still, rain sliding over his skin, his eyes locked on her with something between awe and recognition. When her trembling finally stilled, the light faded back into the stone, leaving only the echo of its power in her chest. She collapsed against the altar, her breaths ragged, her skin still faintly glowing where the fire had touched her. "I told you," Cale said quietly. Not triumph. Not command. Something heavier, sharper. It was always you. Alara shook her head violently. No. No, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. Her voice cracked, raw with desperation. I don't care about prophecies. I just want to be safe. For once in my life, I just want to be left alone. Kale's expression hardened, but his voice held a trace of something she hadn't heard before, pity, or maybe regret. You don't get to choose destiny, Alara. None of us do. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. I lost my mate because she thought she could outrun hers. I won't watch you make the same mistake. Her heart twisted, anger rising to cover fear. I'm not your mate. For the first time, Kale's mask cracked. Pain flashed through his eyes, quick and sharp, gone almost before she could catch it. He crouched in front of her, close enough that his presence drowned out the storm. No, he said softly, but you are marked. And that mark will either burn this world to ash or bind it together. That's what the prophecy says. Alara pressed her forehead against the cold stone, her voice barely a whisper. I don't want to burn anything. I don't want to bind anything. I just want, her voice broke. I just want to be enough for once. Kale's hand hovered near her cheek but did not touch. His voice dropped, rough and low. You already are. You just don't see it yet. The words struck harder than any prophecy, harder than exile, harder than betrayal. Because in his voice she heard truth. And for the first time since she had been cast out, Alara felt something dangerous unfurl inside her chest. Not the fire. Not the curse. Hope. And that terrified her more than the prophecy ever could. The silver glow still lingered faintly on Alara's skin when the forest turned against them. The air shifted first, the way it does when prey realizes it has been surrounded. Leaves whispered though the storm had quieted, branches trembled though no wind stirred them. Kale's head tilted, his eyes narrowing, nostrils flaring as he tasted the danger riding the air. Alara, he said, voice low, deliberate, each syllable sharpened to a blade. Stay close. Her wolf bristled, pressing hard against her ribs in warning. She didn't need his command to know something was wrong. Her body already knew. Her skin prickled. Her wound throbbed. The fire in her blood stirred, restless, eager. Then the shadows moved. They slid out from the tree-lean, hulking figures with eyes that glowed like coals, their forms shifting unnaturally, not wolves, not men, but twisted hybrids of both. Shadow beasts. Their fur was mottled with smoke, their claws dripping with venom that hissed when it touched the wet earth. And behind them, through the mist, the rival pack emerged. Wolves with dark pelts and eyes hard as stone, moving in perfect formation, their leader stepping forward with a cruel smile carved into his face. Castelli, the rival alpha spat, voice thick with disdain. You've wandered too far into lands that don't belong to you. His gaze cut to Alara, lingering on the faint glow in her veins. A grin spread, sharp and dangerous. And you brought me exactly what I've been hunting. Alara's chest constricted. She stumbled back, heart racing. No, no, not again. Her mind filled with memories of exile, of voices shouting cursed, dangerous, unworthy. The weight of their eyes pressed down on her, just as her packs had years ago. The ground spun beneath her feet. Kale's hand shot out, gripping her arm, steady, unyielding. Do not run. I can't, she whispered, shaking, her body desperate to flee, her wolf clawing to escape. Yes, you can. His voice was iron, sharp enough to cut through the panic rising in her throat. His eyes locked on hers, anchoring her to this moment. Stay. With me. The rival alpha raised his hand. The shadow beasts lunged. The forest erupted. Kale shifted with a ferocity that stole her breath. Bones cracked, muscles surged, fur split through skin in a blur of violent grace. His form exploded into a towering wolf, black as midnight, his eyes burning blue fire. His growl shook the ground, deeper than thunder, ancient as the blood in his veins. The beast struck. Kale met them head-on, claws raking, jaws snapping, his movements so precise they seemed like choreography written in violence. Each strike was final. Each lunge lethal. Alara stumbled back against the altar, her hands trembling, fire crawling up her arms as her wolf screamed to rise. But fear clamped down harder. The rival pack closed in, their eyes gleaming with hunger, their voices chanting words that twisted around her like chains. Cursed. Dangerous. Burn her. No, she gasped, clutching her head, trying to drown out the voices. Stop, please. The silver fire erupted. It burst from her chest in a violent wave, searing across the ground, catching the beasts mid-lunge. They shrieked as their bodies ignited, collapsing into heaps of ash and smoke. The rival wolves staggered back, shielding their eyes from the blaze. But Kale was too close. The fire licked at his flank, scorching black fur, burning into skin. He roared in pain, stumbling, but did not fall. His body blocked her from the worst of the ambush, taking the strike she could not control. His blue eyes locked on hers through the blaze, not with hatred, not with blame, only with a warning. Control it, Alara. Her chest heaved, tears streaking through the dirt on her face. I can't, she screamed, the fire flaring brighter. The prophecy's words clawed at her, she will save the two worlds, or end them both. The rival alpha laughed, cruel and sharp. Look at her. The prophecy's cursed child. She'll destroy you all. The council had followed them, elders from Kale's own allies, drawn by the storm of power. They stood at the tree lean, their eyes wide with fear, their whispers hissing like snakes. She's dangerous. She cannot stay. She'll burn us all. Alara fell to her knees, clutching her head, silver flames flickering uncontrolled along her skin. Kale shifted back, his body scorched, blood dripping down his side, but still he stood tall, shielding her with his frame. She stays with me, Kale growled, his voice raw, primal, still half-wolf. The council leader stepped forward, his expression grim. If you keep her, you risk war. With them. With us. She is not salvation, Castelli. She is ruin. Kale's jaw tightened, his chest heaving with the weight of the choice laid before him. The rain hissed against Alara's flames, steam rising in waves. She looked up at him, her voice trembling, broken. They're right, she whispered. I'll only hurt you. I'll hurt everyone. Her hands shook, silver veins burning through her skin. Please, let me go. Kale's gaze locked on hers, fierce and unrelenting. Never. And in that word lay both her damnation and her only chance at survival. The forest did not forgive them when they fled. The air still smelled of ash, of blood, of judgment spoken like a verdict carved into stone. But Kale did not slow. His body bled, his shoulder scorched where her fire had touched him, and still he carried her weight as though it meant nothing. Alara's legs barely held, her breaths were ragged, torn from her chest in shallow bursts. She tried to protest, to pull from him, but his grip was steady, his silence sharper than any command. The rain thickened, swallowing their trail, drumming against the leaves like the heartbeat of the earth. By the time Kale found the cave, half hidden behind an outcrop of rock, night had swallowed the sky whole. He pushed her inside first, his eyes scanning the tree-lean one last time before stepping in after her. The space was narrow, carved by time and water, the walls damp, but it offered shelter. The storm's roar softened, its violence muffled into a distant hum. Kale struck flint against stone, sparks catching against the bundle of dry tinder he carried strapped to his belt. Soon, flame licked the shadows back, casting light that flickered across the walls, across his face. The glow made him look both more dangerous and more human. Alara sank to the ground, her body trembling, her wound burning. She hugged her knees close, trying to contain herself, trying to cage the fire that pulsed restless beneath her skin. She had never felt smaller, never felt more dangerous to herself and everyone near her. Kale crouched before her. Without a word, he reached for her arm. She flinched. "I won't hurt you," he said, his voice low, stripped of the steel he used with others. "But if we don't clean this wound, you'll bleed into fever before the council has the chance to condemn you again." She hesitated, then slowly let him pull her arm forward. His fingers were rough, calloused, the hands of a fighter, yet his touch was careful. He tore strips of cloth from his own shirt, soaking them in the water that dripped steadily from the cave walls. When he pressed the cloth to her wound, she hissed, biting down hard on the sound. "Let it out," he said, his eyes fixed on hers. Pain ignored only festers. Her jaw trembled, but she obeyed. A sound escaped her throat, raw, broken. And with it came tears she hadn't realized she was holding. They slid down her face, unrelenting, until her vision blurred. "I'm terrified of myself," she confessed, the words spilling before she could stop them. Her voice cracked. "I can't control it. Every time it rises, I think I'll lose everyone around me. That fire doesn't protect. It destroys." Cale bound the wound tightly, his hand steady. He didn't flinch at her words, didn't recoil. He tied the cloth, then sat back, his gaze fixed on the fire between them. "You think I sleep?" he asked, his tone quiet, almost bitter. "You think I close my eyes at night and rest? No. I see her face. My mate. I hear her voice whispering lies she swore were truth. I feel her blood on my hands, every night. And when I wake alone." His jaw tightened, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "We both carry something we can't put down. The only difference is yours shines where everyone can see. Mine rots where no one dares look." Ilara's chest tightened. The fire popped, sparks scattering like stars, and in their glow she saw him differently. Not just the Mafia alpha, not just the predator everyone feared, but a man hollowed by loss and yet still standing. Her breath slowed. She whispered, barely audible. "Why are you telling me this?" Cale turned his head then, meeting her gaze with a steadiness that made her throat close. "Because I see you," he said. His voice dropped lower, quieter, as though he feared the fire might carry his words away. "All of you. The fear. The fire. The part you try to bury. And I don't turn away." Her heart stuttered. She wanted to look away, to hide, but his eyes pinned her in place. Slowly, almost against her will, she leaned closer. The fire between them warmed her skin, her breath trembling as it mingled with his. The storm outside seemed to vanish, the cave shrinking until it was only the two of them, their bodies drawn together by something neither could name. Cale's hand hovered at her cheek, not touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat of him. His eyes searched hers, burning with something fierce, something dangerous. Their lips hovered a breath apart, the world holding itself still. Ilara's wolf surged, desperate, aching. Her heart raced so loudly it drowned out the fire, the storm, the past. Cale's breath brushed her skin. His whisper came rough, breaking through the silence like a vow. "I see you. All of you." The space between them thinned, stretched to a thread, fragile, trembling. Her lips parted, her body caught between surrender and fear. The fire crackled, the storm raged, and for one heartbeat, destiny felt less like a curse and more like a choice waiting to be made. The moment hung fragile between them, breath to breath, heart to heart, when the storm outside shifted. The rain no longer sounded like rain. It was sharper, heavier, boots striking mud, bodies moving with purpose. Ilara's chest tightened. Cale's eyes snapped toward the cave mouth, his entire body tensing, the near kiss shattered in an instant. He rose, swift, silent, the predator back in place. Ilara pushed herself upright, the wound in her side burning, her pulse surging with dread. She felt it before she saw it. The presence that made her wolf recoil. The scent she had once known too well. Her ex. Dorian stepped into the cave mouth, dripping with rain, his smile sharp and cruel, a ghost returned to flesh. His eyes locked onto her, glittering with mockery, as though he'd been waiting for this moment, savoring it. Well, Dorian drawled, voice dripping venom, I should have guessed. The exile finds comfort in the arms of the devil himself. His gaze flicked to Cale, deliberate, knowing. Or did you forget to tell her, Castelli? Forget to mention why she's so valuable to you? Alara's stomach dropped. She turned toward Cale, her breath catching at the stillness in his face. His eyes, those steady, burning eyes, did not meet hers. What is he talking about? She whispered, her voice cracking. Dorian laughed, the sound low, triumphant. Oh, Alara. Sweet, cursed Alara. You didn't think he found you by accident, did you? You didn't think a man like Cale would risk his empire, his life, for you? No. You were bait. A hook cast in the dark, waiting for me to bite. His grin widened. And here I am. Her heart wrenched. Cale, she breathed, searching his face for denial, for fury, for anything to prove Dorian wrong. But Cale said nothing. His silence was a blade slicing through her chest. The council appeared next, shadows filling the cave behind Dorian. Elders, guards, faces etched with suspicion and fear. Their voices overlapped, hissing through the cave like serpents. She is the marked one. She is the danger we warned of. The prophecy says her flame will consume us all. Their words rose, twisted, feeding the fear that already clawed at Alara's ribs. The fire in her veins stirred, restless, uncontainable. Her body trembled. Cale, she whispered again, pleading this time, begging. Tell me it isn't true. Tell me you didn't, her voice broke. Cale's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists. For one breath, she thought he would speak, that he would crush Dorian's words, that he would shield her from the storm gathering inside and out. But he hesitated. That single pause was enough. Alara's chest cracked open, a sob tearing through her throat, fury tangled with heartbreak. You used me. Her voice shook, raw and jagged. You looked at me, you touched me, you told me you saw me, and it was all a lie. Cale's eyes finally met hers then, and there was agony there, but agony was not enough. The council surged forward, their chants louder now, their judgment final. Her flame will destroy us. Cast her out. End her before she ends us all. Alara stumbled back, her body trembling as the fire inside her clawed free. Silver light erupted across her skin, her wolf howling within, rage and grief tangled into one unstoppable force. No, she screamed, her voice echoing like thunder through the cave. You will not decide who I am. The silver fire burst outward in a violent wave, scorching the walls, splitting stone, forcing the council to retreat in terror. Dorian shielded himself, laughing even as he staggered back, delighted at the proof of her curse. Cale reached for her, his voice rough, broken. Alara, stop. But she couldn't. Tears streamed down her face, searing hot against her cold skin, her chest burning as the fire consumed her control. She fled into the storm, silver flames trailing in her wake, the prophecy's weight pressing harder than chains. Behind her, the council's verdict roared through the cave. She will end us all. And Cale's voice, raw, torn, echoed after her. Alara. But the night swallowed her whole. The storm had carried her far, but not far enough. Alara ran until her lungs burned, until her legs trembled beneath her, until the fire inside her threatened to split her chest apart. The forest blurred around her, silver flames licking her skin, sparks falling into the mud like dying stars. She wanted to disappear, to bury herself so deep no prophecy, no counsel, no man could ever find her again. But the night would not release her. The pull came first, an ache in her bones, in her blood, dragging her toward the heart of the valley. Then the sound, low, resonant, not thunder this time but drums. Ancient, steady, pulsing like the heartbeat of the world. And then the scent, blood, thick and metallic, carried on the wind. The blood moon rose. Its crimson glow spilled across the treetops, staining the sky, the earth, even her trembling hands. Alara stumbled to the ridge, her chest heaving, her wolf clawing inside her ribs. Below, the ritual ground burned with firelight and war. The Brapa wolves had come, black-furred and scarred, their tattoos gleaming like brands across their skin. The rival packs flanked them, snarls and roars shaking the air. At the center of the clearing stood the council, their chants rising, their fear twisting into condemnation. And there, bloodied, staggering but unbroken, was Kale. His wolf form towered, black fur slick with blood, his body carved with wounds that should have felled him long ago. He fought anyway, his claws tearing through shadows, his jaws locking on enemies twice his size. Every strike was desperation wrapped in fury. Every roar carried the weight of a man willing to die standing. Alara's chest clenched. He was losing. For all his strength, for all his command, he was only one against many. She watched him falter, stumble to one knee, teeth bared, blue eyes blazing even as blood soaked his flank. And then she heard it. Innocents screaming. Pups dragged into the chaos, their mothers shielding them with fragile bodies. The Brapa wolves showed no mercy, their claws cutting through the defenseless. The rival packs cheered, their eyes wild with bloodlust. Something inside Alara snapped. She could not run. She could not hide. Not when her power was the only thing that could end this. Not when the prophecy had hunted her every step of her life. Not when Kale bled in the dirt, fighting until his last breath. Her fear melted into fury. Her shame burned into resolve. She rose, the silver flame surging through her veins, no longer fighting her but answering her call. I am not your curse, she whispered into the night. I am not your sacrifice. She stepped from the ridge, her body igniting as she leapt. Mid-air, her bones cracked, her muscles tore, her skin split, and for the first time, the shift did not break her. It remade her. She landed in the clearing on 4 blazing paws, her form towering, her fur woven of fire and light. Her eyes burned molten silver. Her howl ripped through the blood moon, shaking the sky itself. The world reacted. The earth shuddered, splitting at the edges of the ruins. Stones long buried rose, glowing with the same silver veins that pulsed through her body. The altar flared alive, symbols blazing, the prophecy carved into reality. The ground trembled beneath every wolf present, friend and foe alike, as if bowing to the power reborn. The Brapa wolves staggered back, their eyes wide with terror. The rival packs faltered, their snarls dying into silence. Even the council, those who had condemned her, could not lift their voices against the fire that crowned her. Alara roared, her flames surging outward, a shield that wrapped around the innocents, burning back the beasts, searing every hand that dared reach for them. Her power no longer lashed wild, no longer uncontrolled. It moved with her, through her, bending to her will. Kale lifted his bloodied head, his chest heaving, his eyes locking on her. And for the first time, awe cracked through his iron mask. He saw her not as exile, not as cursed, not even as marked. He saw her as Alpha. But as the Brapa wolves fell back, as the rival packs bent low, as the council trembled in silence, the air shifted again. From the shadow of the blood moon, a deeper darkness unfurled. It was not wolf, not man, not beast. It was older than the ruins, older than the prophecy itself. A voice rumbled through the clearing, low and endless, curling through their bones. She is not the only one. The fire around Alara flickered. The ground split wider. From the chasm below, black smoke clawed upward, taking form, taking hunger, rising like a nightmare long buried. And every wolf, Kale, the council, the enemies, felt it at once. The true war had only just awakened. The battlefield was silent but for the crackle of dying flames and the groans of earth split open. Wolves crouched low in the dirt, their eyes still wide from the firestorm Alara had unleashed. Even the council, who had spat judgment like poison, could not find words. They stared at her the way prey stares at a predator, caught between awe and terror. Her silver flame still clung to her fur, not wild now but steady, wrapping her like a mantle she had been born to wear. And yet, When she looked into their faces, she saw only the reflection of her greatest fear. Fear of her. Fear of what she had become. Fear that the prophecy's curse had finally arrived in flesh and fire. She shifted back slowly, her body trembling as skin replaced fur, as bones were formed, as the fire coiled deep in her chest. Barefoot, bloodied, her clothes torn, she stood in the center of ruins that pulsed faintly with her power. Her eyes swept the crowd. Not one stepped forward. The silence pressed heavy, suffocating. And then, softly, almost like a confession, the narrator's voice carried. Would you have feared her too, or would you have stood beside her? Alara's gaze lifted to the blood moon. Her chest rose and fell, every breath a battle against the weight of their stares, the weight of Cale's silence. She had not chosen this destiny, but now it burned within her veins, undeniable, unstoppable. Would you have called her savior? The voice asked, hushed, intimate, like it spoke straight into the heart. Or would you have called her ruin? Cale stumbled forward, his body broken, his chest soaked with blood, his steps unsteady. His eyes locked on hers, heavy with everything he had not said, everything he had hesitated to give her. He opened his mouth, but before words could form, the question pressed again, sharper this time, burning through the silence. Would you have chosen her, or would you have left her alone in the fire? The wolves shifted uncomfortably, torn between awe and fear. The council's eyes darted, whispers beginning to coil like smoke. Cale's fists clenched at his sides. Alara's heart raced. The voice dropped lower, lyrical, lingering. Is she the hero they never deserved, or just a girl cursed with too much fire? The fire in her veins stirred again, answering, daring her to believe. And as the tension peaked, the narrator's voice softened into a plea, a thread of warmth amid the storm. If Alara's fire lit something inside you, don't let it fade. Subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections. Here, we tell tales that burn. The flames dimmed. The ground settled. For a heartbeat, it felt as though the story might finally end. Wolves shifted uneasily, Cale's chest rose and fell, Alara's hands trembled at her sides. But then the earth spoke again. Low. Ominous. A whisper that did not belong to any living throat. She is not the only one. The shadows at the edge of the ruins thickened, pulling into shape, crawling upward like smoke given purpose. The voice grew louder, deeper, wrapping around every wolf present, seeping into marrow and memory alike. The true alpha hasn't risen yet. The blood moon shuddered, clouds racing across its crimson face. Alara froze, her silver fire flickering, her heart pounding as though it already knew what those words meant. Cale's head snapped toward the sound, his bloodied body taut, his eyes blazing with warning. The council staggered back, their fear now turned not toward her but toward what moved beyond her. And then, silence again. The ruins dimmed. The flames guttered. The blood moon sank behind the trees. The war had ended, but the story had not. This isn't over.